Ladies, and a few of the gents who watch, hello.
Hi.
I know it's been forever. I've gotten so many people asking, excuse me, Sharon, where's Dr. Karen?
I'm here. I'm here.
No, I'm not kidding. I've gotten like many messages on Twitter, on Instagram, DMs, just being like, get your act together.
I love you guys.
Because we need Dr. Karen.
I love you guys. Thank you.
So we're back, and the topic for today is one that we've heard a lot of you guys sharing over and over. A couple of you at least have said specifically, can you touch on the conversation of grief? And I remember the first time I told Dr. Karen, she was like, it's so vast and it's hard to really hone in on just the perfect solution to help one person specifically, unless they came in personally. So what she then came up with is
something very general on a few misconceptions about grief. The reason why I was so iffy about talking about grief or even depression is because they're heavy topics and they're so individual and so deep that I don't believe I do it a service if I just talk about it in just general terms. It's something that you have to talk to someone face to face about.
Yeah.
So that at least you see what they're going through, see their facial expressions, see their body language. It's not something I believe in just having a blanket statement of how you should handle A, B, C, and how you should do this and this. And that's why I stayed away from it. But I finally caved.
And she's found
persuasion right here.
And she's found a way that can still make a kind of impact in people's lives. Because again, like you were saying, you know, even if many people have gone through grief, everyone is so different.
Even sisters are different.
Well, exactly.
Twins are different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you just need to be careful with that. But
exactly.
Anyway,
so treading carefully with this topic and knowing that full well that I will not cover every single thing, I'm going to dive into it. So yes, there will be some people who will feel like this is enough for them, and some will feel like they need more, and some may not be happy with what we talked about because they feel like they were looking for a solution. I'm not here to give solutions. As I've always said, my job is not to tell you how to do things or what to do. That's not what psychologists do. We don't tell you. We
give you
allow you to speak and allow you to find your own answers. And sometimes when we speak to you, we hope that you find your own answer within what we say. And that's pretty much what I'm doing today, and that's it.
And also one more thing, if you are grieving at the moment and you feel like you want to see someone, then you can go see Dr. Michelle of Retro Group, whose contacts we'll leave in the description box. Not Dr. Karen's contacts, right? Because sometimes there's a little miscommunication
I know
there.
A lot of people want to, but not yet. I will let you know
when the time is right.
The day I am ready to start doing the one-to-one, I will let you know. So
it's soon though. It's soon. Ooh.
I will let you know.
But for now, Dr. Michelle's contacts will be in the description box.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So now a lot of people who go in for grief work or to go and see a therapist for grief usually go in because of their lack of knowledge of what grieving should look like. Because what we do as human beings is we practice for a lot of things. Sometimes we even practice for a breakup. You practice about what you're going to say, how you're going to behave, what you're going to do. You practice for many things, for speech,
for going in to talk to your boss, for talking to your best friend about something that happened.
Even how to fight with your friends. You practice because you're thinking, if she says this, I'll say this, or if he says this, I'll say this. So you practice, you rehearse. But no one practices for death because no one wants to know that they're mortal. It's easier to just believe that everyone lives forever and not to think about it. And that's why when people come in, they're confused and don't know what to do. Now, a lot of them believe that there's something wrong with them because they're grieving. Again, because there's no set template of how you should grieve. So what then happens is that people come in with other ideas that they've heard from people, and I'm here to try and dispel a few of those myths, just so that you understand that grieving is very, very unique to everyone. So the first one is, now you may feel like your whole world has been turned upside down. And when that happens, sometimes some people say that after they've lost a loved one, they sometimes hear their voice, or someone passes and they smell their fragrance, or they actually maybe hear their name being called. And because of that, sometimes people believe that they're going crazy.
I've heard of that too.
A lot of people do that.
Is that it sounded like
or they see someone in a crowd they're like, oh my gosh, that's so and so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that happens, and then they start to think I'm going crazy, I'm hallucinating.
Yeah.
Just because you think you're going crazy doesn't mean you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. What normally happens is that grief can be so unsettling because you lose complete control over how you think, over your mind and your life, and because of all those things happening, you think that you've lost control and that you're going nuts, but you're actually not. This is what grief is like. It's not you going crazy. It's what grief is. It's simply grief. You're grieving, and accept that you are, and be kind to yourself for it.
Oh, I love that one. Okay. Okay.
The other one is that we've always known that there've always been 5 stages of grief.
Yes.
And everyone talks about them, and it's interesting. Whether you're in the psychology field or any other field, everyone knows that there are 5 stages of grief, and once you go through them, then you're good.
Everything is back to normal.
Now you have to remember that the person who came up with this, these 5 stages of grief, wrote her book in 1968, and her name was Dr. Kubler-Ross. She published a book on death and dying. When she wrote her book, she talked about 5 stages, which are namely denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that when she wrote this book in 1968, she was writing it based on interviews with people who were actually facing imminent death. So it was actually a book that was aimed at finding out how people deal with death if they're the ones who are actually dying. Eventually, people embraced it worldwide as something that even the bereaved go through.
Oh.
But you have to remember that even if that's what it is, are we saying then that when you're going through grief, you've gone through the denial, you've gone through the anger, you've gone through the bargaining stage, you've gone through depression, and you've gone through grief, acceptance.
Yeah.
And once you've gone through acceptance, does it mean that your grieving stops?
No, it can't be.
That's the thing, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And because people are so hard on themselves because they're thinking, I've gone through the 5 stages, why aren't I fine now?
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Some people work that way and they can move on, and some find it so much harder to move on. And I think it's important to know that our grief, our emotions, our thoughts will always be ups and downs, even if you've gone through the 5 stages. And sometimes you don't even go through the 5 stages. That doesn't mean you're not normal.
Right. Or maybe you skip some and you just go straight and you feel like,
exactly.
Isn't this the order?
Yeah, there is no order. Everyone believes that there are 5 stages and they have to follow a linear pattern. That is so not true.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow that, and there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And the way you need to focus on it is to not compare the way you grieve with the way someone else grieves, even if you're grieving the same person. So just because your brother or your sister or your uncle or your aunt or anyone, or even your friend can move past the grief in a different way than you can, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's just that you need to find your own way and be kind to yourself, and don't give yourself a timeline.
Yeah.
Don't believe in the linear. It's not all stuck that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. So there's no linear pattern. So don't kick yourself about that one.
Okay.
Then there's also a belief that women, because women are more emotional when they're grieving, that they grieve more than men. That's not true. Women are more they express their grief more openly, and men don't. And people need to realize that it's okay. A lot of times people almost try to force men to grieve the way they do, because they believe that if they don't grieve the way they do, it'll come back later and it'll ruin their lives. But you have to remember that, and a lot of people do this, when they see a friend who's grieving a parent or something, they don't see them crying, and then they think, oh my gosh, this person's going to be in crisis later on, they're going to flip out. That's not always the case. Some people deal with grief by just using cognitive skills like problem solving, and sometimes they just take action. And that's how they deal with their grief, and that's okay. Some people will just go into fix mode. I need to plan this, and that's how they grieve. So even if you don't see them cry,
that's a process.
That's their process
of release.
Exactly. So even if you don't see them cry, don't assume that you need to keep watching them or following them or waiting for them to cry. It's not the way everyone grieves. And there's someone called Dr. Kenneth Doka wrote a book on grieving beyond gender. And I like that book because he talks about how there are 3 different ways to grieve. There's the intuitive pattern, which is mainly associated with women because it's more emotionally expressive. And maybe some men may be more emotionally expressive. Again, remember, humans don't follow a
cut and paste.
Exactly.
You say that all the time.
Exactly, they don't. So some men may follow the intuitive pattern, and that should be fine. There's also the instrumental pattern. This one's more characterized with men because it's mainly thoughts and behaviors and associated with action. But sometimes you can have two of them, which is called a blended pattern, and that reflects both. And those are only three that he mentioned in his book. Remember, as I said, there's so many others we may not cover, but those are the three that I liked from Dr. Kenneth Doka. And what happens is that when someone grieves a different way from another one, sometimes you find misunderstandings amongst couples because a wife doesn't think her husband is grieving enough, and then a husband thinks that his wife is grieving too much. And then they start to misunderstand each other and become critical and judgmental of each other. And sometimes even friends and family members do that, where one sibling maybe is grieving a lot, one isn't, and the other one is thinking, what, are you trying to show that you loved dad or mom more than I did? What's the issue here? Why are you showing everyone? And before you know it, it's the resentment builds. But I think if people understood that despite genetic similarities or whatever it is, the way someone grieves is different, I think people will be less judgmental and critical of each other, and less, there'll be less arguments.
And how do you know when someone actually isn't releasing?
According to whom?
So you have
Is it according to you? That's the difference. Because when you that's the thing. If they're not releasing their pent up emotions the way you're used to, why assume that they're not? We tend to believe that our way is the way, but then it's not. So always work from the assumption that someone is grieving and they're grieving in their own way. And if you want to understand more, ask them.
Ask the main one.
Ask them, talk to them. Sometimes they'll talk to you about it. Sometimes it's too much and they don't want to talk to you about it. But ask them, because I think by asking, you already show that you're trying to understand where they're coming from,
and you care,
and you're there. And some people just want you to just be there. That's it.
That's a good one.
The other one is that there's a belief that grief doesn't change your relationships. It does. Grief does change your relationships, because what normally happens, and what happens a lot, is that mourners, people who are mourning, often find that the people they thought would be there for them sometimes are not the ones who are. And then people who they put on the back burner and never expected are the ones who step in and come and help in ways that they never deemed possible. And what happens is that changes relationships. Now, the closer you are to someone, sometimes the harder it is for you to step in and help, because it's real now. It's real. That happened to so-and-so's mom. That happened to so-and-so's dad or sister or brother.
Child.
It could happen to me. So some people they behave as if mourning is contagious, and because they're uncomfortable with it, and because it's now a reality that they're mortal, they step away, not realizing that they're doing it, because they start to protect themselves and sometimes step away from the one who's mourning. And before you know it, the one who's mourning then starts becoming isolated and feeling lonely. And it's not because they didn't have friends, it's because they have friends who now don't know how to deal with them in this situation. They've never seen them grieving, so they step away. And that's a tricky thing. So grief does change relationships. It really does. People sometimes end up avoiding the mourner, and the only reason they avoid you is because they don't know what their ability is to deal with your sorrow. So it does change relationships, and that's something you need to know. You are changed as a mourner by your grief. You are changed in the way you see your friends. You are changed in the way you now see life. Some relationships may end, and that's important for you to know. And some may be built from that. And it just happens that way. So whatever you do, just find someone who listens to you, who validates the way you're feeling, and if you can't find someone like that, sometimes finding a support group of people who've gone through it helps, because I believe in healing through talk. And if healing through talk means that you need to find people who are like you, who are in the same situation, who have lost a family member, then do that. I know sometimes it's hard to do it because some people want to be left alone, but I think it's important to have social contact either way.
I agree.
Exactly.
And not to isolate yourself.
Exactly. And of course, these people are not going to take the place of a therapist. So if you do decide that a therapist is where you need to go, please make sure you find someone who is comfortable and knowledgeable about grief therapy, because not everyone is. So it's important to know that. And a lot of these misconceptions, I learned from someone who is a grief therapist, who's actually called Dr. Marilyn Mendoza.
Okay.
And she's written a number of books, and one of them is actually called, I'm trying to remember the name, it'll come to me, but Dr. Marilyn Mendoza is actually a clinical psychologist who deals with grief.
Okay.
And that is what she does. And
I love that even in the field of psychology, like there's pockets of experts for whatever it is you're going through.
Exactly. It's just like in the medical field.
Yeah.
As I've always said, you don't, if you're having a, I don't know,
a heart problem.
Yes,
you're not gonna go for the eye, nose, the ENT doctor.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, they're all doctors, but
you go for the person who specializes.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, because those ones are the ones who are equipped to deal with your grief and to deal with any reactions that you may have. So it's important to find someone who actually is equipped to do it. And it's actually very unethical for a therapist to take you on in a field that they're not comfortable in.
Yeah.
It's unethical.
Yeah.
So it's important for you to know that.
Okay.
And there's no therapist you'll ever find who knows everything. That is not how
it works. Yeah.
It's not. And I'm not a grief counselor.
Yeah.
I am training in it. And I'm learning and I'm reading and I know there's so much work I need to do before I say, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because even in my own way of dealing with grief, it's, you know, you have to also deal with your way of dealing with grief so that you can be able to help others. And it requires training. So never believe anyone who says that they're good at everything. I study as well, and a lot of the notes I had today came from, of course, Dr. Marilyn Mendoza, from Dr. Kubler-Ross, who I talked about, who wrote the book, Dr. Kenneth Doka, who wrote that book on grieving beyond gender, and also lots of other sources from different psychology websites that sometimes don't have someone credited, but those are the ones I got information from and read in depth about.
So there we go. A breakdown of the things that we carry with us as how you should deal with grief, but in actual fact, it's not necessarily the case.
Or what people tell you that you should be doing.
Exactly.
You should be crying. You should be doing this.
You should take this way and that way. Or it doesn't work like that. And I hope that whatever you've heard today, all the things that you've heard today will help you or a friend if you're going through this. Or
just help you to be kinder to someone, to understand their process. Just be there for them. Don't tell them how they should grieve, how long they should grieve, no judgment. So this didn't have to be about you at some point in our lives, because none of us is immortal.
It's the truth. We don't like to hear, and especially with our culture, there's something about like, don't talk about
but it's
death.
It's not.
But you know, it's going to happen to you, to the people that you love. So at some point in time, this video hopefully will be helpful.
And maybe you will be that friend who shows up out of nowhere to help. And changes everything.
That was a beautiful.
You may be that person. So so take it how you want it. Again, it's supposed to be general. So.
Thank you, Dr. Karen.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And thank you guys. And sorry it took forever to film once again.
We'll try and
make it work. We're getting our act together. And really, it's not we, it's me. I'm getting my act together. Dr. Karen has been like ready. I'm the one who's just been trying to get my life in order.
No,
but we sometimes you just have to go with the flow.
Awesome. That's all.
Anyway, we have to say goodbye now. But once again, remember, we'll leave Dr. Michelle's contacts in the description box, and very soon you might just be able to hit up Dr. Karen.
Something in the works.
But we'll let you know when exactly that is.
We'll
and for now, we'll love you and leave you.
Thank you. Bye.